Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another social study travel sort of video. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel, super like, Patreon, whatever. It does help. I appreciate it if you do. So I got asked to talk more about sex stories in Japan, culture stuff, right? And well, I've already made many videos when I've lived in Japan on and off and talking about those stories, but I'll try to do, I guess, a longer form video here because people like hearing about it sometimes. And I'll try to think of a few. I'll try to think of a few news stories or maybe analogies that I haven't thought of before. That maybe I only put on Instagram or something like that. I don't know. I feel like most things I've probably talked about before, so who knows? Maybe I'll forget something. But something maybe something I don't think I touched upon that I could do something new, or at least not as in depth as maybe I'm going to right now. Is you might ask yourself, have you ever seen anyone get in trouble in Japan? Or have you ever heard of anyone getting into trouble for the debauchery, for the sex that goes on, I guess. Right? Which we'll get into, but to be honest, like I said, it's very rare that I've heard of anyone actually getting in trouble for stuff that goes on, right? And you got to remember that there's this mindset of Japan. You have this very sort of mundane, innocent sort of, it's like something out of a movie when you see a lot of suburban life, right? Very innocent, very peaceful. But the city, that city life is where people go to not be a robot, let's say, for a little bit, right? Excuse me, sorry, I just ate. So the city is one of the free time, or is one of the few times in life that you are allowed to be free. You're allowed to experience these things that maybe you normally don't get to experience in normal mundane life where everyone, acts the same, let's say, or it's like a sort of like robotic sort of life, let's say, right? The city is when you get to experience these things, right? And again, that's why a lot of things that go on in the city, are very lenient with the laws, let's say, what is legal, what isn't legal. It's like I said, a lot of like the big sex areas in Japan, you think are where there's the fucking love hotels and all this kind of stuff, right? And the biggest sex area in Shinjuku, the police are right there, right? The police are only there to make sure that nobody gets hurt. And like I've talked about in videos before, it's very rare for somebody to do something mean to somebody in Japan, right? Like, I don't consider Japanese people necessarily very nice, right? But I do consider Japanese people less malicious, let's say, than other countries, right? So of course bad things do happen, right? I've talked about that, but I think that's one of the reasons that you're allowed to be so sexually free. And of course, a lot of people, oh my God, these huge age gaps with whatever, right? You know, the sex culture, you could say, from a psychology sort of thing, why it's so free and the police are almost only there just to make sure nobody gets hurt, is kind of allowed because, again, that's when you get to experience these things that maybe you don't normally get to experience in the suburbs, right? This is when you get to experience your youth, or I guess if you're an older grandpa with money, fuck some young girls or whatever you're doing, right? But again, and I've told the story, and I'm going to be all over the place with this, right? I know I'm not wearing pants. I'm getting ready for bed. I was talking to this one guy, right? And I always say, hopefully, if you get to travel, you speak a little bit of the language, and if somebody trusts you, you can get to learn a lot about different cultures and everything like that. And there was this kind of like suave guy, and he's been in and out of jail. He was telling me, and broken Japanese, broken English, kind of whatever. Just we're speaking back and forth with each other, right? Enough to get the gist, right? And even I asked him about like the sex culture and all that kind of stuff there. And he's like it's okay because you're here. Like this is its own. He didn't say the word ether, but it's like this is this own sort of, let's say, I'm going to say the word ether, right? It's because you're in the city, it's okay, right? And he was like, I would not go back to my house basically and try to fuck a bunch of young girls. Right? Let's say that. He's like, that you better be, you got to be careful. You got to be a little bit prudent, right? You know what I mean? But the idea is, if you're all here in the city, people know why they are there. They're there to have a good time. Maybe some people are there to experience sex and all that kind of stuff. It's like that's, that's why it's okay. And just like I told that story, I was at the park. A girl came up to me. We just started talking, and her English was quite good. And I was asking her about, that sex stuff and age gap stuff and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, what do you think about, all these young, I guess prostitute isn't maybe the correct word, but I guess a lot of them do get paid, right? Although if they like you, you don't have to pay. That's for sure. You know what I mean? But a lot of older guys, that maybe aren't as cool, they got to pay, right? But, and she was just like, and I've told the story before, and she was like, I thought about doing it in middle school. I was just worried that I wasn't pretty enough, right? And she's like, I think, why wouldn't you do it? She's like, Japan is so safe. Like, people don't hurt each other here. If you're going to experience something, we're all going to experience it at the same time, right? To like grow as a person, right? So it's not actually seen as a big thing, right? Not like a big to-do, so to speak. Of course, if you were to do some of the debauchery, the promiscuousness, let's say, in like a regular sort of suburb, you might not do as well. It might be frowned upon a little bit more, right? You might have to be a little bit more discreet. But when you're in the city, no one really cares, right? I mean, you could even think of, just to think about this, we're talking about sex for a second, right? Just think about this. Think about like the host clubs and all this kind of stuff in Japan, right? They bring in tons of girls that are underage. They know that they're not old enough to drink. The police are right there. We don't even have to talk about the sex stuff. Look at all the drinking bars and host clubs. You think everyone that's of legal age in Japan goes to the host clubs? It doesn't. It's not like, if you're in the city, it's just assumed, hey, you know what you're here for. The police are just like, did anybody get hurt? Okay, you got scammed out of money, or you shouldn't have been drinking, but you shouldn't have been drinking, right? But did anybody get hurt? That's kind of the vibe, right? And when I talk about people getting in trouble, I think some of these stories maybe I told on Instagram. I don't remember if I told all the stories on YouTube, but whatever. Maybe I have. Have I ever heard of anyone get in trouble? Let's talk about, if nerds are watching this. There's that fucking the Rurouni Kenshin guy. I don't even know who he is, right? And I don't know his real name, right? But I remember hearing that basically there was I don't know the exact details. I looked it up a little bit before this video just to try to refresh my memory, and I already forgot his name. But whatever, the basic gist was, he did the Rurouni Kenshin thing, and he got caught with a bunch of like child porn or something like that. I don't know exactly how old they were. It could have just been, who knows, teenagers, middle schools, whatever. I've said before, apparently one of the most famous escorts prostitutes in Shinjuku is a middle school girl. And she has apparently a Twitter where she's like, hey, I'm ready to fuck or something. I've heard that, right? So I mean, like I said, in Japan is where things will happen on the FGC on NBC, right? I think I've actually seen her before, right? But apparently she's a regular, but so many girls wear masks, it's hard to even tell. But anyway, because I know people have like talked about her. She's like very famous, right? Most famous prostitute in Shinjuku. It's a fucking middle school girl. It's actually, once you've lived in Japan, it doesn't seem that weird anymore, right? But anyway, the Rurouni Kenshin guy. So he got caught with a bunch of lolly porn or something like that. Although it wasn't like drawings, I think it was actually like real people. But if you look at the thing, right, I think it was something crazy. Like he got caught apparently with like 100 different videos. But you know what happened to him? Apparently, I checked up, he just got fined $1,000. Like it wasn't a big deal even. Now, I remember hearing about this story when I was younger and be like, oh, what actually happened? But once you actually live in Japan, you're like, I'm kind of surprised he got in trouble. Almost, dude. I mean, like I said the first time I came to Japan, dude. There's fucking grandma porn in fucking 7-Eleven, dude. Grandma porn, lolly porn, all this kind of stuff. Although the past couple times I was there, it was not as prevalent. I think they tried to get rid of some of it because of the Olympics to seem more modernized or something, to not scare any foreigner or something. But even then, like I said, I remember I was like at the 7-Eleven at night. I was just looking at different magazines, and there was some fucking manga, dude. It was literally just it was an excuse for sex, but it was something like about like a dog or something. This dog and its owner, but the owner just kept on having sex with people or some shit like that, and the dog would watch. And so obviously it was just an excuse to draw porn that kids can look at, whoever they want to look while they're at 7-Eleven, right? And even I remember you go to something like a book off or something like that. I don't know if it's a book off. It might have been a book off, but let's say book off, whatever it is. And I remember like there's used lolly porn, and a fucking kid could totally see it, right? I mean, I was just like, first of all, used. What happened with this thing? And then I'm just thinking, I can't believe someone probably just brings it. It's just not a big deal, I guess, right? I mean, that's just Japan. I mean, I actually think about the Rurouni Kenshin guy. I actually wonder, again, living in Japan, talking to people, it almost makes me wonder if, a lot of Japan, when there's like sex stuff, they like blur out like the genitalia. So I almost wonder if it was like legitimate real, and that's why he got in trouble. Do you know what I mean? That's what I almost theorize. Like that was why I was like, bro, come on. 100 of this, Rurouni Kenshin, come on. 1 or 2's okay, but 100, calm yourself down, $1,000 fine. Right? I mean, so, and I would assume I think they're still doing Rurouni Kenshin or some shit, right? So even speaking about that kind of stuff, I had a brain fart. Um, what was I thinking? Well, let's tell another story about people getting in trouble. I have heard of one guy actually getting killed. That is true. I don't know how true this story is, but it is something that I've heard before. One of the leaders of the gang, I say gang loosely. I'm one of the leaders of like a gang, quotation marks, a crew, let's say. He was I saw pictures of him because we were talking about it. I was like, oh, yeah, it was this guy, right? And he was full of tattoos and all this kind of stuff. And apparently though, he was a very well respected guy. A lot of people liked the guy. But he was a high up guy, and apparently he was fucking everybody. Everybody. All the young girls he was fucking. And I guess he was very excessive with it, and I did hear that eventually, he fucked some younger girl, and her mom was a little bit higher up or something like that, and the mom was like, "Oh man, now you're fucking my daughter. You're fucking everybody," or some shit like that. And apparently, the story is that the police did get that guy, and supposedly the rumor was that the mom is a higher up person, and the mom had him killed. I have heard that story. But that's a pretty rare story, right? So, I mean, and even like, because the new guy that is I guess you could say leader of, gang sounds so loose, right? But the crew, whatever, is apparently he's like people like him, but he's not as respected apparently because he didn't get the job because of actually doing something, I guess. He just got the job because the other guy died under suspicious circumstances, I guess. And but I just say it's interesting because again, I don't remember ever meeting the guy. I actually don't even remember seeing the guy because he definitely stands out. Although maybe he was just covering all the tattoos when I was in Japan before or something like that. But apparently he was very, very popular, and the people that have talked about him said very, very good things. And it really just sounded like he was a little too horny, and he was a little too belligerent about the horniness. But other than that, apparently he was a very, very well respected person in the community, not just the gang. I guess. And just the story I heard. Okay, and I can't say the new guy. I can't say I have met the new guy multiple times, and for sure, the new guy, I've heard he bangs a lot of girls too himself, right? So I don't know. Japan must have like a threshold or something, and it's like, bro, you get so many times, but you gotta keep it down a little bit. I just like I said, Japan, I guess, right? I can only even imagine what something like Thailand is like, right? I've heard stories of Thailand, right? The crazy thing is, I've heard girls have actually like Thailand because of all that stuff. Kind of, I was like, really? You see? Okay, but anyway. But yeah, no, but that guy, God, Jesus Christ, I remember. I mean, that video was on fucking I recorded some of that on fucking Instagram. I put that video, like, dude, that dude just in broad daylight. I mean, of course, he was not in the right frame of mind. He took some girl and he was just in the square, and they took a blanket. And he just started going to town. They're just fucking. I mean, they were both completely wasted. Because me and other guys were like looking at us. I'm like, are you seeing this dude? He's just fucking this girl in broad nightlight, I guess you could have said. It was like, this shit is crazy. And even he's come up to me before. I remember that guy came up to me, because I speak a little bit of Japanese, and he saw I spoke Japanese. And, he was like, that girl, man, she sucks a great fucking cock. Well, he didn't say that. He said that in Japanese. And he's like, I can give it to you for free or some shit. And I was like, it's okay, but thanks. So, I mean, Japan, dude, right? I mean, but it just shows you, like, sex is just, if you're in that ether, nobody really cares, right? Definitely. I mean, if you've seen it on, before living in Japan, if you've seen the stuff about like it's okay to cheat in Japan, for sure, I've seen that many times. Um, it is okay to cheat. They just assume feelings aren't there, and like I said, and once you get to see the psychology, you can understand that because you see that sex is just that the experience for a lot of people. And like I said, I had that experience with that one girl, and I just asked if she was okay, and she's like, she just started bawling. She's like, wait, you're asking if I'm okay? Like, no one had ever asked if she's okay in her entire life, and she just started bawling, like she was not ready for it, right? So you see, when you have experiences like that, you're like, whoa, there's this vibe of you can be so free. And from a certain perspective, you could almost say there's almost a beautiful innocence and protectiveness of it that you could think that an entire culture of people are, because I don't know how sex ed works in Japan. Who the fuck knows? I guess you go to 7-Eleven and you see a fucking grandma porno, right? It's just there, whatever's there, right? So I'm not aware of the sexual education system in Japan, but it is very it's interesting that it's not unheard of that you just people go there for the sexual experience. That's when you live life, that's when you experience your youth, because then you go back to the suburbs and back to being a robot. And in a way, it's interesting because you think like an entire culture is so protective of, God, it kind of, maybe not exactly the right way to phrase it, but the fostering of youth. Sounds kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not sure how to explain it. Like, of course, you can't imagine something like that happening in America, but I guess it's just like, I told experiences before that, of course, I had girls coming up to me, teach me English at your house for the weekend, right? I'm like, are you old enough? And, eventually guys were like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm just making sure she's old enough, right? And they're just like, well, you're not going to do anything to her, are you? I'm like, well, no, I wouldn't do anything bad. He's like, then no, nobody cares. Like, people don't hurt people here. Like people, like, they almost looked at you like you're retarded. They're like, if somebody like trusts you for the experience, like, what do you mean? Like, it was just, I don't know. They're like nobody hurts people, but then, like I said, almost the deeper than thing, the other layer is that you see because nobody would actually hurt anybody, and I say nobody would ever. Of course, bad things do happen in Japan. I've heard sad stories, right? But because of that sort of like ideology or theory, that you have this feeling that because nobody would ever hurt anybody, no one actually cares enough about to hurt you, right? So a lot of people, they're fake friendships, of course, as well, which is a sad thing too. But I know I wasn't there at the time, but apparently there was the girl, and I told the story that I guess she actually asked people how does she kill herself, and they just told her, and she killed herself. And that's I don't know if it's a true story, but living in Japan and having some experiences, it doesn't sound impossible, which is pretty sad, right? Um, but other things, getting into trouble, I would say, like I said, it's pretty rare because again, you would have to do something really crazy, right? Um, of course, if you lie about a lot of stuff, and if you do the holier than thou thing, yeah, I've seen people, that they're not happy about it. Like, there's one guy, or he was at one time quite promiscuous, let's say, a bit of a playboy, and excuse me, and he lied about it, and lied about it to such a extreme degree that it was very strange, and you can be sure people were not happy about it, and it was actually the lie, I think that really got people like angry about it, right? It was the holier than thou-ness that bothered people. It wasn't the I don't think it was actually the fact that the promiscuousness that bothered people, because if you lived in Japan, I mean, Jesus Christ, right? It was the lying about it, and because he lied about it so brazenly, people were not happy with him. Let's just say that. And oh god, so yeah, I guess I don't think I've actually talked much about that, about do people get in trouble or anything like that, and you got to remember the legal age in Japan is so low anyway, right? So it's and then you're in that ether, and so people don't really care. So um of course there's I did say last time, people would always, I think, I've been in Japan 5 times, and I did say for the first time I did finally do an escort last time, and like I said, it was actually pretty bad. And that's something that ever since I've been to Japan, I was like, oh, gotta go to strip clubs, are so awesome here, escorts are so awesome here, blah blah blah. It's like most times you take a girl on a date, fuck that. Who knows if you're getting pussy? Get an escort. They are so fucking good in Japan. Who cares, right? So I figured, like I said, I've been to Japan 5 times, so I thought finally, okay, I will go to one escort. I will see what it's like. And very attractive girl, like I said, but it was terrible. It was not sexual at all. I don't know how people do it like that. I would have to be in such a horny mindset to do it. Like I said, it was. Some people swear by it though. They love it, right? I mean, some people love it, do it all the time, and of course, it. If you think about Japan, it makes sense because again, why do people have sex at love hotels so much? Because when you're back home, you're living cramped like sardines anyway, right? So it's natural that you would go experience these things at love hotels, and there's a lot of escorts, and I made videos about that before. There's fucking you got some escorts that will only do Japanese people, but then there's also rules. If you speak Japanese, well, if you speak Japanese, but then it's okay. How much Japanese you speak, it's okay. Some girls can only talk to you if they're on one side of the road. They're like, hey, you can't talk to them when they're standing right there, but once they cross this other road, then it's okay. In case somebody was watching them, then you can. There's all sorts of different rules, and just again, I've talked about all this shit before, but those things are interesting to me though, because like I said, I had sex with one escort, and it was terrible, and I could barely even get hard, to be honest with you. Like I said, but very very attractive girl. It was not sexual, and I kind of was just I was just doing it to say I did it, do experience something new, and like I said, it was almost so bad. I feel like I, which is terrible to be honest with you. It was so bad. I almost feel like one day I'll have to do it again because it was that bad. Like, oh, this could not be this bad, right? But very attractive girl. It just was not sexual whatsoever, and it was almost kind of. I think she was. I dare say it was one of those things that she's probably with guys that are just not used to a girl like her, like that would ever have sex with them. And this isn't me saying that I'm cool or something like this, but I've turned down model girls, right? I've seen girls naked. It's nothing like that's not me saying cool, right? I mean, I've been with model girls in the bed, and I'm just like, I don't feel like it, right? Just I don't know, right? I mean, so, um, but so I think maybe she was used to the other guys. They probably come in and they're raring to go, and I need to be a little bit romanced, right? I should have. I don't know, who knows, but it is what it is. But yeah, some people swear by it, that kind of stuff, I guess. Oh, another thing too, why a lot of not people don't get in trouble too is, to my knowledge, is a lot of stuff. If you were to get in trouble, it's the girl that gets in trouble because it's under the assumption that the girl is the one that is seducing the man, right? So that's kind of an interesting kind of like thought that the woman seduces the man. It's always under that assumption, but then you don't want to actually punish the woman, so then nobody gets in trouble. So that's like another caveat that, from what I understand in Japan. There is the thing too. I saw a guy talking about this, and this is true too. That you definitely will see that girls will do the like, oh no, stop, yamate, dame, whatever. But and then you think, and you yourself stop if you speak a little bit of Japanese. You're like, whoa, am I doing something wrong? Whoa, doing something wrong? And then they stop like, why'd you stop? Right? So that is a thing. That's a brain thing too. You think about no means no in America. No could mean yes in Japan. It's part of the thing. They no. They're like, wait, why are you stopping? You told me no. You said it's not good. No, I'm just saying that. Well, so we're rope. So I will say yes. That can be a thing. I saw a guy say that, and I'm like, yeah, that can be a thing. But that's one of those things too that I think it's almost a guy. It almost feels like it's kind of like beta and not living in the moment. I think almost because you need to realize too, if a girl is willing to go home with you, she wants to have sex. The consent is almost implied, which is, especially if you live in America, what a brain fuck that is for what they try to teach you in America. But it is true. I mean, you got to remember that asking a girl, can you kiss her? Does anyone think that's sexy in America? Probably no. Can I have sex with you? Would you just kind of ruin the mood by saying that, right? So, I mean, that's a whole nother kind of can of worms, though, right? Picking up girls, all that kind of stuff. I've said before, and I know some people have got mad when I've done these videos because they're like, oh, your experiences in Japan, they don't count because you look like you do. You would no girl, no normal people don't have experiences like you. And sure, for sure, that is true that, even my very first time in Japan, the guy was telling me, he's like, I've never seen anyone get attention like you before. They're like normally people don't even talk to people, and you have girls that are coming up to you. He's like, you have no idea how rare that is, and it's like, especially in Japan, he's like, that just does not happen. Girls do not come up to guys like that, and so I mean, I know some of my experiences are extreme, and obviously, even leaving Japan, coming back, people that I'd never talked to, they're like, "Oh, it's Prince Charming, you're back. Oh, Final Fantasy guy, you're back. Everyone remembers you. Oh, you're Disney Prince. Everyone knows you, right?" So, for sure, for sure, I guess you could say take my experiences with a grain of salt, but I've also tried to be friendly. I also try to speak Japanese to people, and I'm lucky enough that a lot of them, they are willing to teach me how things are. Of course, I get turned down too. I had some girls, they automatically said, "Oh, I think your dick is going to be way too big. I don't trust you." Nope. She's like, some girls have been like, "Oh, it's just like every girl knows you. Every girl knows you. We've seen you. We all talk about you, but we're just too afraid. We're too afraid the dick is too big, but we all know you. You're Disney Prince, right?" So it's a compliment, I guess, but there's some girls that are just like, no, no, no. And I've seen some of these girls too. They will, when you see that they turn me down, so to speak, like that. And I've seen some of these girls go with fucking huge ham beasts of guys, right? And then, of course, even speaking like that, of course, yeah, for sure. If a girl, I mean, God, who knows how much it happens in Japan? I would assume it happens a lot. You know, I've never asked I've obviously I've not asked every girl that I've ever talked to in Japan. Do you have sex for money? Do you suck dick for money? Right? But for sure, I've had girls tell me that yeah, they have done sex. Done sex. That sounds weird. Had sex for money, but they're like, oh, I would never make you pay. They're like, no, like, and that's one of those weird things about cheating too. I've had girls before say like, oh, I have a boyfriend, but my boyfriend would forgive me if it's with you, because my boyfriend would know that I need to experience the cool American guy once, which is like, okay, right? Obviously, saying about speaking a little bit of Japanese. Most people don't speak English whatsoever. Funny enough, one of the girls that could actually speak the best English. God, I mean, I definitely asked her how old she was because she looked way too young. I'm like, I don't even trust how young you look. And she's like, I'm old enough. And I'm like, I don't fucking believe you. You got to show me. I'm not taking your word for this one. But she was old enough. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But she actually could speak English. And oh man, dude, she would do. So she would do like the Onichan thing. And she could speak English, do the daddy. She could do all the voices. And I'm like, that's what in the mind fuck you can do the hentai voice? Onichan. You could do the your English is good. I'm like, what? But that's very rare. Also for sure, speaking of something that I've said before, in terms of like boy girl stuff, I've always said, if a girl gives you the chance to fuck her, I think that you should automatically take it immediately. And I feel like that's the same thing in Japan, for sure. I think it's just a cultural thing. You got to think women are more emotional. Like if a girl gives you the chance to fuck her immediately, I've met many girls who, after we exchange Instagram or Line or whatever it is, they're like, yeah, I wanted to fuck you right there, but I didn't know if it was okay to do it immediately. And she's like, I don't, or she, there's been many, they're like, oh, I just didn't know if it was okay, but no, I wanted to right when I saw you. I had a couple girls, well, we all wanted to do it at the same time, threesome, right? And then you got to think that, and this is why I talk about too. It's kind of interesting if you think about it. Like even talk about those girls that want to have a threesome. They were like, we don't know the next time we'll be back to the city. And they're like, we were just there for that day, and now we got to wait because now school every day, got work the other day, school. So when we go to see, that's our one time for fun. And it's really, every time I've gone to Japan, I have to like rework my brain that when you're in the suburban life, this is how people act. And then you need to be able to switch your mindset in the city. This is what people flip the switch. God, there's so many fucking sex stories I could tell of crazy shit I've seen. A lot of these I've told before. That one was on Instagram too, walking to Shinjuku to the the smoker's exit. And if you go left before you go to the exit or whatever like that, there's that little nook and cranny where they have some. Well, there's a bathroom and there's like a lockers, right? Saw an old dude going to town with a little girl right there, dude. Cause you go walk to the back, smoker exit right there. Go that way is the lockers, and there's like a little, is it a ramen shop? I forget what it is. and then there's the bathroom and the lockers right there, and they're in that nook and cranny in the locker, just and I looked around and like, they fucking ran away. And I was like, what the fuck? Whoa, crazy shit. I mean, the point is, if you've heard about it, I've probably seen it, or I've also heard about it, and I can see it's plausible. I guess one thing I could say that I've never seen, or maybe I've seen once, before going to Japan, you hear about weird things like people stealing people's underwear, shit like that. I have heard of that, but I also heard about, there's all these vending machines with the underwear vending machines, all this kind of shit. I think I've only ever seen that once. And it might not have been underwear, it might have been socks. I don't remember. I feel I might have seen that once, but considering the weird shit I've seen in Japan, like considering like day one, 7-Eleven, lolly porn, grandma porn at 7-Eleven. What is going on? Right? Is this what I'm in for? Right? So saying that, I think maybe only once I've seen like an underwear or maybe it was a sock vending machine. I don't even fucking remember. I'm saying like weird sex shit. So I'm sure it exists more thoroughly somewhere if you look for it. Not something I've looked for. Doesn't really interest me. So that would be one weird sex thing that I guess I have not seen that is prevalent, but I mean, I'm sure it exists, right? Even go to Don Quixote. Don Quixote, I told the story of that one guy, I know him, just thinking about people doing younger girls, all this kind of stuff. He was like, yeah, I was talking to this girl, like, yeah, just come over. She's like, how do you want me to dress? And he's like, dress young and slutty, right? And so I guess maybe from like an American mindset, if you hear that, you're like, oh, she's going to be like in a schoolgirl uniform, something like that, right? And he said she came over like as a preschooler. And he was like, what are you doing? She's like, you said young and slutty. He's like, I didn't mean like a preschooler. What are you wearing? Japan, right? I mean, you can see outfits like that at fucking Don Quixote. Don Quixote the Tengas. That's something I got to do. I've been to Japan so many times, I still don't have a Tenga. One day I got to buy a Tenga. Next time I come to Japan, I got to buy a Tenga. That I guess, right? I still have never bought a Tenga. Maybe I could do, some girls actually really, I know some girls that actually really like, they don't like actually watching guys have sex in porno. So they like watching guys actually fuck Tengas and fuck little dolls, right? I mean, I've actually heard multiple girls too. They like watching porno of girls or of guys fucking a little doll because they like to imagine they are having sex when they're that young too. And they don't want to see a real person doing it. And so they either watch that or they watch Tenga porno. And I'm like, I didn't even get it at first until some of these girls, you see their daddy issues and their age gap issues is so strong. And you're like, oh, shit. So fuck around, you're going to find out, right? I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that before. But I'm like, I get it. Oh, okay. I got you. But God, now I'm thinking about Tenga. Yeah, so obviously you see Tengas everywhere. I sometimes you see, and there's not everywhere, but there are. I have seen some just regular run of the mill. God, I want to say, is it? What is the train station name? It's it's around Keio Tama Center, but not quite Minami Osawa. I do know I've seen Tengas just in the regular, like I think it's 7-Eleven there or something, which is kind of weird. Excuse me, but I've never seen that anywhere else. But that just seems weird to have like sex toys at the regular 7-Eleven, and I think that's also the one that is right next to it's I can't remember what it is. It has the fucking, It has the statue guy in the chair. But I know there's a lot of schoolgirls there, right? You see them all the time. I can't think of it though. Not a place I frequent, believe it or not. um, but God, what is that place? You know, I'm just thinking that weird that you think how easily it is to find like sex stuff or something like that. I don't remember the train station name. I don't know. That's weird. I don't remember, but anyway. So it's not just stuff like Don Quixote or actually looking for sex shops. You can see stuff all over the place, right? Of course, I don't know if you want to hear like pickup stories. I've told the one funny story about the girls. They dropped their ice cream. I saw them staring at me. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And they're like, I'm like, hey. And then I walked out and I'm like, sorry, okay. And then I'm like, wait, these motherfuckers are dropping their ice cream, spilling their spaghetti ice cream. I think that means I could probably get their number or their line. And I walked back in and they got a new ice cream. They're dropped the ice cream again. Of course, you know, when I say that, you know, going back to that, I talk about that, not that people are generally okay with cheating. Not everybody though. You know, for sure. I mean, God, it sucked. I had that. It was at the bookstore at the Tokyo station, at the bookstore, the Maruzen. Leaving the Maruzen, there was a model girl. Well, I found out she was a model girl after we exchanged Instagram and Line and all that kind of stuff. And for the life of me, I can't even tell you how the fuck I picked her up. I don't remember, or what I said to her. Spoke a little bit of Japanese. I might have said "Nampa shite mo ii desu ka?" I do say that sometimes just because it just sounds stupid to me. And they're just so surprised you speak any Japanese anyway. They don't care, I guess. And like I said, her friend that she was with was wingman. She's like, oh my God. She's like, tap her on, Ikemen. And the friend's like, okay. And man, that girl was so fucking hot, right? And found out she was a model. And unfortunately, her boyfriend, she said, checked her messages, and she's like, I do have a boyfriend, and my boyfriend just found out we were talking. That sucked. But for sure, a lot of other girls, they don't fucking care, right? But that's, you know, and for sure, too, something I talked about in that recent video, too. There is social proof, too, though, too. Like a girl, just because she's in Japan, there's definitely girls that they want to go out with a guy that is like, oh, your Instagram isn't famous enough. This seems suspicious. You know what I mean? Blah, blah. So that kind of stuff, you know, sadly exists in Japan too, but I don't know, man. Japan, whatever. If there's specific stories that I've alluded to that I've talked about before, you know, I've talked about so many stories, and this video is already 40 minutes, right? Anyway, I don't know. I mean, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. Appreciate it. Thanks. The end.